Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy.
So, what's on today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Harris, in this episode, it's the second part of Richard Freeman's exploration of the Museum of the Paranormal and Spirituality in Carmarthen, Wales, run by Laura and Eric Rowton. Be there or be a square. Bingo, bingo.
I really like the old credits.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and this young lady is Lilith Tinkerbell. And welcome to another episode. Hang on, what's that over there? I can hear the guns of Brixton.
Rossiter thing, Griffin. What's going on down at the old youth outreach centre down in Brixton, my old mate? Oh, Barry! Oh, it's very exciting. Now, you remember the Central Office of Information? Yeah, I remember the Central Office of Information. They made the public information films, didn't they? Yeah, they did. They were deeply disturbing back in the 1970s. Well, what's this got to do with your kids down at the outreach centre? Well, the office has reopened and they've asked me to direct and film a load of the films from the public information films. We are going to be redoing them for the modern age with all the kids. So, like, you know, climbing up pylons and stuff to retrieve frisbees. Yeah, Jimmy! That stuff like that. I'm running in front of trains and mucking about with farm equipment and falling into pits of slurry.
And Rossiter, will there be one about the dangers of running with scissors?
Oh yes, there will be lots of running with scissors.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this lady is Lilith Tinkerbell, my cat, and I want to welcome you to another episode of On the Track. For those of you not in the know, On the Track is a weekly, well, bi-weekly actually, show which goes out on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, and on at 3 o'clock on Saturdays for about twice that, and it is a mixture. It is a melange. It is a muddle. It is a... oh, I can't think of anything else beginning with M. Lauren, what begins with M?
Macaroni, of course.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I can work with that. Because this show is just like macaroni. It's small, it's delicious, and it's best when covered in cheese. It's a macaroni of a show, and it covers hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, I think we'd better ask them.
That's a lizard, isn't it, Alan?
I want you to imagine an endless ocean made of jelly, inverted, with foxes
And now, over to the second part of Richard in the freakiest museum of all.
Yeah.
So that was from there, did you say?
No, we're just saying that it's
Oh,
similar,
it's similar,
in that
similar,
it drained the electricity. Like they would have massive electrical bills, and where the clown came from, the family had solar panels, and their battery bank would be constantly drained, even though based on what they were generating, it didn't make sense. Because they kept it in the like an old barn where the batteries and everything, where that setup was. Because once the family made the man kick it out the house.
It's away from the meter here and everything, so but if it starts doing that, we'll just go with it.
No. So it's actually this one here that is the
because this one looks more electrified.
Yes, it does. That's what I'm thinking. His hair was on it.
Well, one lady who came recently said maybe his hair is like that because he got spooked by that one.
That one has stranger eyes. The eyes look wetter on that one.
Yeah.
But I like clowns precisely because they are grotesque and weird.
I think you're in the minority
Yes,
now.
I think
Most people would disagree.
Of course, we have like Oddfellow's garments and Oddfellow's mask, but they're actually made by Oddfellow in his own hair. Would have gone into making that.
What's the ritualistic regalia on this?
This is Freemason.
It's Freemason. So from the Rosicrucian degree, so the apron and all of that.
Yeah.
And the hair's fun.
You hate that.
I do hate that.
Because my we saw the Archangel Michael. That was my backup room.
Right.
So rather than let the wind go two ways.
Funnily enough, with your masks, my mum had a wig because she was trendy in the 70s, and everybody had them. But then when she didn't want it, I got it, and I had an African mask, and I put it behind the African mask on the wall. It made it look much more like a head.
That's our Miskin comedy.
So like the proto voodoo doll from the
Quite
Congo region of Africa.
Quite heavily used, that one.
I've seen one of these in the shape of a dog.
Yes, you do get that. I mean, crocodile shapes as well. Yeah, so every nail represents a pact made by the owner and the spirit who's said to reside within the object. So you would ritualistically lick the nail and then drive it in to the statue and then bid the spirit to do something for you. So this version is a warrior spirit. That's what the Nakondi part means. He's supposed to have a spear in here, but at some point in his life he's lost it. So the idea being that you're calling to this warrior spirit to go and perhaps avenge you. Maybe somebody wronged you and you're asking for that vengeance. You're asking for justice or whatever it is you may be asking him to do. So he has his belly portion, and there would have been ritualistic herbs prepared and put in there with that piece of glass, then over it, the idea being that the glass is the barrier between this world and the next, and that he's in there looking out and he has glass over his eyes as well.
When's he from?
So it's quite broad. We have circa 1940s, but he could actually be quite a bit earlier, mid-1800s all the way up.
But it's interesting, it's the proto-voodoo stuff, obviously, over in
Yes,
in
yes. So they
America.
took that kind of concept and then made the syncretic, like Haitian.
Yes.
And where did you come by it?
So a private collector, it was his aunt. She passed and he didn't, he was just selling her collection basically, and she had quite a few objects like that. She used to travel a lot, so yeah.
From a similar area of the world, there's these three masks right here, also from the Congo region.
Yeah, so these three in particular from the Luba peoples, and distinct by the kind of striped kind of design that they make. So these would have been worn ceremonially, particularly to perform almost like community exorcisms of sorts. They put them on and all the other associated things that they would wear, and drive out evil spirits from the community. They're also used in initiation ceremonies in their like kind of secret societies as well. But the mask, of course, is a global concept. It's the idea you're putting it on and then it's acting as this channel for some sort of unseen entity to come through. And then we have a few bits and pieces here related to our ongoing research, something that we call the Eliza case, which actually relates to a childhood haunting of mine and a young woman called Eliza who was killed. And so when we filmed a documentary film in 2017 called In Search of the Dead, we stumbled across this through talking to lots of different people. It all got rather personal because it related back to my childhood haunting. And so we stumbled across like a Victorian cold case in a way of a serial killer who killed several young women but never was punished for it, and one of these women was called Jane Blakemore. So we've had many communications with her through the board, through different methods, meditations, and also these images here are produced by a mobile application called GhostTube Seer, which is actually developed by good friends of ours who I mentioned upstairs, Amy's Crypt. So Jared, the husband of the duo, he's like a software engineer, and he made this app, so it uses sensors in your phone and then it kind of mixes them with AI, the idea being that spirits would manipulate those sensors and use the AI to generate images. So these 5 images here came from one session, and they came in succession by who we believe is Jane, and they show the story of what happened to her. So in 1856 she went missing from Longdon-upon-Tern in Shropshire, and they drained the river and looked for her but couldn't find her. And 10 weeks later, her body was found in that same river. And they ascribed it to an accident, that she was just found drowned. But she claimed that she wasn't, she was actually killed. So she showed us an image of herself, an image of the place where she went missing, Longdon-upon-Tern, and it does actually look like this. The field is still as it is today. The next image is her and the man who killed her. The next image is the boat that he took her away on and kept her body stored for 10 weeks. And then the final image is her body with the coroners looking at her. So we were actually able to find all her records, including the actual coroner's report from 1856. And she had told us all of this, that the man had killed her, she wasn't found drowned, she was dead on that day that she went missing. So we took the coroner's report and we actually gave it to a doctor and said, could you tell us, do you think this person drowned? And he said that modern medical knowledge says that she couldn't have been in the water for 10 weeks because her body had all the signs of dry decomposition. So he couldn't say that she was murdered, but he could certainly say that she was in the water for no more than 48 hours. And he had this verified by a coroner as well. So it was quite bizarre that things that we had been told through different spiritual methods was confirmed through modern medical science.
It was confirmed basically that somebody put her in the water.
Yeah, I saw the documentary when you released it.
So it's still ongoing because there are more victims. We were just very lucky that Jane's records were so complete, and that we were able to find her and then give her records to somebody who could actually look at them. It seems like he favoured immigrants and people who were not documented as well. It may have been he made a bit of a mistake with Jane because her father put a reward out after she went missing, and there was quite a lot of heat on it. So it may have been that he risked returning her so that it would make it all go away.
It makes it quite awkward as well, because we get a lot of messages saying that he was like a boatman and things like that. I say he could have just lived in the rivers and like be documented in any way. We're like,
So this is a board that we use for a lot of those communications that we no longer use because it's seen so much activity. And there's actually like little bits of it kind of chipped off because in trying to uncover what happened to Jane, he seemed to come through the board as well, not very happy about us.
Yeah, we've had to go crazy. It hits and we've had smells of sulphur come from
How about the doll? The doll's fairly modern, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is actually my childhood doll, which like friends of mine who are sensitive and psychic have said they absolutely do not like this doll. I have no problem with her. She's my dolly, but she would have been in the house and in the room when all of this happened. I don't actually know.
You didn't give her a name?
I can't remember her name.
Oh, right.
No, I know. I have to ask my mom. I don't know. I don't actually remember her name. No one's ever asked me that, so I actually have to look that up. Yeah, no. So
it is pretty creepy. I don't like it.
Yeah, my childhood bedroom was a basement. So down in the cellar of the house.
Oh wow! Yeah,
in an old house.
Yeah. And the front road to the house was back in this area.
So there was this railway track at the back, which is still there but not used, and then there used to be a canal right in front. So if he was passing through, he had multiple options, and we're not 100% sure what the connection with the house is, but.
And this is the gift shop, which you're welcome to, of course.
So that's about it. We have the graveyard.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
The basement, which we on ghost hunts we like to send people down to the basement, and everyone comes up saying it's so peaceful down there.
Well, I love your room up there. I could just sit for hours reading, just with friends talking gently. Yeah, it's a really nice place to just be in. That's what I thought.
Well, you've got a fantastic place here.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to be able to help support it in any way I can.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate it. Really.
Very glad to have you here, particularly so early on as we start all of this, and we're really excited to see where it all goes.
Show them
the things you brought.
Yeah, hang on, I'll just turn it.
Side, so it looks basically exactly the same as it does today. And then the one on the left is what it looked like before they
seem
did
to have
that.
like a small printing press
These
here.
books here,
They're different ledgers and minutes from all their meetings. We actually have all the accounts of the chapel that date back about 200 years.
Yeah.
So
we know what they bought in 1834.
yeah,
basically.
I can find the images of those. So because they're in here, it was a bit of an anniversary print that they made. Waldo Lewis's plaque that is over there on the wall, and there are a few stories to tell about him because he seems to have made himself known in a couple of seances that we've done here as well.
So they advertised themselves quite well with their printing press, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's what it looked like before they completely did the inside. And then there you go, it doesn't really look much different. Yeah, it's quite unchanged since they redid it. The statue of Christ as well is also French, and that's from Normandy.
So the chair's from France, you say?
Yeah, they're both from France. That's from Brittany, and that's from Normandy.
It's done in the style of Napoleon III's reign around that time period. So late 19th century.
We have a graveyard here that was really badly overgrown when we bought the place, full of brambles like overhead height. So we've actually managed to get all the brambles down, and we took some of the brambles and made ourselves a little crown of thorns. It was nurtured by the ground of the graveyard. So.
And what was the significance of the chair?
So it's just, we used to actually live in France. So it's just something that we've had for a long time. So it's a prie-dieu, so it would have been used hopefully faithfully, something like that, kneeling before Christ.
Yeah. Appropriate place to have
Yeah, so a Catholic piece.
Yeah. On the right, if you don't mind, please. Yeah, thank you.
So these actually belong to each other. They're from the 1950s, the handwritten prayer and the charms. And the prayer is quite interesting because it says, whosoever carries it on their person will be protected from an unnatural death. For example, it names drowning. You won't drown if you have that on you. But more than that, you'll get 3 days notice as to when you die. So we like this because it shows the inherent magic and mysticism within Christianity.
It sounds very like a lot of the pyramid texts, i.e. this is what people who got, the normal people, you get buried, as many of these as you can get with you to protect you, and to protect you in the afterlife too. But it sounds very similar. And
and all over the world, everybody loves having their little charms to hold on to, but because these are Christian ones, they have the Christian imagery, but it's all the world over, the idea of holding on to a special piece of something that will give you some sort of magical protection.
So it keeps carrying on. We've got a seance parlour, we've got the schoolroom.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you all of that.
They're actually going to come.
So you're crossing the threshold now into the schoolroom part of the building, which is Victorian, so it's old, but it's not quite as old. So we have a few. The lights have gone off in here. You just. Could you hold this for me, please?
My school was 1847, so yes, we've had very just layouts and double tiles and heavy upgrades.
So we have a few different charms over here, which is, we like to call this our kind of like last stop before we start getting towards maybe some of the more darker parts of the museum. So they're moving away from Christianity, perhaps. And the shoe, so that's a Victorian child shoe because people, they would, you get through children's shoes quite quickly. But they've gone off, the battery must be on them. You take the shoe and you put it in the cavities under your floor or even up your chimney to keep evil out. Which this time of year is always interesting to think about because there's one particular gentleman who likes to come down people's chimneys and maybe you want to put a shoe up there to stop him from actually getting in your house. And even the colour red, people would paint things red in order to keep evil away. The idea if you have the evil eye, this global.
Different parts of the world.
In the past, I have portrayed both Father Christmas and Krampus.
Oh, okay.
So both sides of the coin.
So So yeah, all charms from all over the place, and again you see the idea of the eye repeating.
It's Turkish, that one, isn't it? The blue.
Yeah, so this is the Nazar, which is almost one of the most recognisable anti-evil eye charms.
I've got given one from Greece. It's all over there.
Yes.
They're Turkish Airlines put it on the planes, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. And even the idea of the blue, it links back to the peacock again. Like, what have people seen throughout time?
It's more like a peacock eye than a human eye.
Exactly. People seeing the same thing throughout and coming to the same conclusion. It's fascinating.
Yes.
Okay, would you like to go up there?
Yeah.
So up here is our seance parlour. So this is the room that we've done the most work to since we've been here, that we're the most proud of.
Oh, this is lovely.
So this is our Victorian seance parlour where we like to highlight that the Victorians, because they were on this threshold between spirituality and science, that the seance is then born, their answer to trying to get proper proof, scientific proof of an afterlife and what happens to us after we die. And that's against the backdrop of them thinking very deeply about death and mourning and bereavement. So we have, for example, this beautiful dress here. It's a Victorian mourning dress. It's from the 1890s, and it would have been worn by a lady in deep mourning, so suffering the loss of her husband or a child. And she would have worn that for about 2 years. And when we talk about mourning, Victorian mourning, we can't really have this conversation without mentioning Queen Victoria.
The Widow of Windsor.
Who wore mourning for the rest of her life.
40 years, yeah. If you could have the money and you wanted to do it, there was no set time period, so by all means, the rest of your life. And occasionally she'd wear a bit of white lace or silver trim or something like that, but was in black otherwise. So yeah, there's that mourning bonnet there is 1870s. And in the case over there we have some mourning jewellery made of the hair of the deceased. So many different ways that people would publicly display that they were in mourning.
We also have an example of postmortem photography, because sometimes, photographs are quite difficult to come by, and the only photograph you might get of somebody would be after they die, in the case there of a baby after they died. They would use that to remember them by.
So that none of what the seance being born wouldn't have been possible, arguably, without people thinking deeply about death in that sort of way.
This is our little temporary exhibit. It's about all the song. We use these are fragments from it, boudoir, belt buckle, and other things like that. And we have a sort of experiment running here during our seance evenings, which we put a piece of the boudoir in the middle of the table, and we ask people to get their impressions, if they get anything from it, and to write it down, put it in a black envelope, and put it in a box, which is getting quite full now. And we're going to open it up after a season, and we're going to see if there's any sort of commonalities.
Yeah, so it's based on the cross correspondences, which is a long-running experiment that was done by the Society of Psychical Research from about 1900 to 1930, where they had lots of different seances with lots of different mediums, and they would see if they could get messages that continued from one session to the next. So we have our yellow labels on these to say that they're from what we like to call stressed environments. So obviously the Battle of the Somme is a very stressed environment, to see if an object is in such a place, can it continue to have the energy of that?
Probably the understatement of the century.
Yeah.
Stressed in.
Yeah. We have a few other. Exactly.
I wouldn't have liked to have been in any war, but World War I sounds just revolting.
Yeah. So up here we have more red label objects, but these are from locations of paranormal significance. So they're all from the United States, actually. So that plank of wood that you have there is from a house in Florida that was actually a murder-suicide house in the towards the end of the 1800s. A lady killed her husband in his sleep and then killed herself. And the house was abandoned after that, and in local stories and local legend it was supposed to be haunted. Someone said that, a few people have said that an exorcism was actually performed on the house, and recently they've started to renovate it and partially demolish it. So that plank of wood is actually from the room where the woman killed her husband. Again, the idea being, if you have a piece of the whole, if you have a piece of something, do you have the energy of it? So everything that's red labelled, we have like special care that we give to it, so they're behind barriers. And we do different things so that when people come round and guests interact with them, they can feel safe. We bless them, holy water, different sorts of prayers. We use intention setting crystals as well. I like to think everybody has their views represented to be covered to try and keep that energy contained.
What's the story behind this piece of wood here? Is there?
So those are from those pieces are from the Demon House, as it's called in America, in Gary, Indiana. So they've had more than 200 demons possessing the house. It was so possessed, so horrible, so haunted, it was actually knocked down.
Yeah, so this is a more recent case. So a family moved in November 2011. So it was a mother, her 3 children, and her mother. And it ultimately reached a point where the mother and her 3 children, they were all claiming that they were demonically possessed. And we actually have a copy of the report that was made to get permission for exorcism to be performed. It was sent off to the bishop. So 3 exorcisms were actually performed on that lady until she was free. And they moved on and moved elsewhere, but the house was still said to have been badly afflicted. And so it was eventually purchased by Zach Bagans.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And he investigated it and ultimately chose to demolish it in 2016. This doll here on the end was donated to us by our friends Amy and Jared from Amy's Crypt on YouTube. They go around the world investigating all sorts of places. They're an Australian couple, but this actually comes again from the States and Nevada State Prison. So a prison that was, it was only kind of recently that it actually closed, but they had the first gas chamber in the world, and very, very horrific place. And it's open now for tours and also ghost events, and supposed to be incredibly haunted. So that little doll, it was used as a trigger object by the ghost tour operators, and when Amy went there and investigated, that lady kindly gave the doll to Amy, and then she kindly gave it to us. So it's been immersed in that environment with people specifically asking friendly spirits there to interact with it.
Yeah.
So it was notorious serial killers, all sorts of awful people in the house really there.
So these cards are oracle cards. The design of which is very unusual, was actually made by that gentleman on the wall there, a French psychic whose stage name was Mage Edmund.
This fellow here?
No.
Oh, the guy with the...
Yeah, the guy with the glorious
wondrous
moustache. Yeah, so...
The one looks like a mage.
Yeah.
That face screams mage, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the cards are his design, and they're kind of based on the Marseille tarot deck, which is kind of the classic tarot deck. But they also have lots of alchemical symbology on them as well, like the symbol for sulfur and whatnot. But interestingly, these cards are actually really heavily used. You'll notice little French handwritten annotations on them. And this card here, I'm not sure what happened to it, but it's been sliced into slivers and then sellotaped back together at some point in its history. So very well used by someone.
Looks kind of ritual that bit,
Yeah, definitely.
When was this made? Do you know?
So these cards, I think, are about the 1960s, but the design is earlier than that. It's
They look a lot older, don't they?
Yeah, it's within his lifetime, which is 19th century. But the story goes that another Frenchman, he moved into the place where this man used to live and found all his old papers and everything, including the design for these cards, and then they were published. Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting figures. He consulted with nobility, royalty, even was consulted with Emperor Napoleon III as well.
So he was a highly sought after man, and he would have his special oracle deck and pull it
I've
out
never
to
heard
use
of
with
him. I'll have to look him up.
So this is actually our replica of an automatic writing planchette that we do actually use during seance evenings. You're welcome to have a look at it because it's not old, it's quite...
Yes.
Yeah, so we actually use that one, but it's how it would have been in the Victorian...
We based it on an 1850s design.
Yeah, with the automatic writing planchette predating the Ouija board and everything like that, and going all the way back to 6th century China where they would just have the 2 sticks.
It reminds me of my childhood. We had a round glass table. It was perfect.
Oh, right.
That's how they would have done it at the beginning.
Indeed.
The American Civil War that really triggered people who was doing that, be a pub, shot glass in the middle of the table and just go for it.
That's what we did.
Have any interesting experiences?
Yeah, quite a few. I mainly whatever they were trying to scare us. They weren't big on facts.
Yeah.
They did get some do some interesting calculations, i.e. they gave us the right days of the week of dates years ahead.
Okay.
It's our subconscious doing the calculations or whatever.
It's quite remarkable calculations.
They got the right dates. Yeah. They got the right day of the week.
Did you know the answer before you asked, or did you look up the answer?
Oh, we looked up the answer afterwards. We asked specific dates. And what day of the week is that to give it confirmation? And they told us, and they matched. But most of the information was not.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I can say to you, that sort of thing, Ouija boards absolutely works, but I can't tell you who you're talking to.
No.
And that's the issue. Yeah. So we have a few different Ouija and spirit boards.
They made clever guesses and did things to scare us as well.
Well, Alistair currently believes that when you use Ouija boards, you're communicating with like a low frequency elemental being, just messing about.
Yes, or semi-autonomous sport forms.
Something like that.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this one?
So that board, although it looks old, it isn't actually old. It's actually an action prop from a Netflix series, The Irregulars. So yeah.
Oh yes, I saw that. Well, I saw the first episode and I didn't watch any more.
It was in the first episode.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
That was a public information film.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with Richard and Laura and Erik for the final part of Richard's exhaustive documentary visit to this remarkable museum next week. I want to say a big thank you to Richard and to Laura and to Erik for being, I can't say being my guests, because basically this is a film Richard made and all I've done is cut it into 3 parts and leave him to it. But they've been the show's guests this week, and thank you very much, dears. I want to say a big, big thank you to everybody but for whom this show could never be made. I want to say a big thank you to Louis, my producer, who is at the moment, and I'm not lying, he is working on a waffle truck in South Carolina. And he's had 2 car accidents in 3 days. This is probably something to do with President Trump deciding that waffles are un-American or something. But I don't know. What do I know? I'm just a silly old hippie with a funny hat. I want to say a big thank you to Graham and to Isabel and to Guinevere and to Richard Freeman and Darren Nash, who are over there in the corner looking mischievous. And I'll be back next Wednesday. What am I doing on Wednesday? I can't remember. I already filmed it, but I can't remember what I'm doing. What am I doing next Saturday? Well, like I said, it's the 3rd part of the interview with the visit to the museum by Richard and Laura and Erik. And then the week after, we're going to be looking at a very interesting discussion that me and Richard had with Dr. Darren Nash, but that won't be for a few weeks. So, assuming that you guys are going to be there watching this episode or next week's episode, I'll be there doing what I always do on a Saturday afternoon, the normal gubbins of doing the notifications and the, what are they called, live chat and all the other crap. And assuming that you're there watching, I will most certainly be seeing you.